Chapter 12 of Gray Lensman by E. Smith. Chapter 12. As has been implied, Miner's Rest was the biggest, widest open, least restrained joint in that entire sector of the galaxy. And through the underground activities of the fellows of the patrol, Kinnison knew that of all the king snipes of that lawless asteroid, the man called Strongheart was the big shot. Therefore, the lensman landed his battered craft at Strongheart's dock, loaded the equipment of the hijacker's boat into a hand truck, and went in to talk to Strongheart himself. Supplies, equipment, metal bought and sold, the sign read. But to any experienced eye it was evident that the sign was conservative indeed, that it did not cover Strongheart's business by half. There were dance halls, there were long and ornate bars, there were rooms in plenty devoted to various games of so-called chance, and, most significant, there were scores of the unmistakable cubicles in which the basest passions and lusts of man were satisfied. "Welcome, stranger. Glad to see you. Have a good trip?" The dive-keeper always greeted new customers effusively. "Have a drink on the house." "Business before pleasure," Kinnison replied tersely. "Pretty good, yes. Here's some stuff I don't need any more that I aim to sell. What'll you gimme for it?" The dealer inspected the suits and instruments, then bored a keen stare into the miner's eyes, a scrutiny under which Kinnison neither flushed nor wavered. 250 credits for the lot, Strongheart decided. "Best you can do?" "Tops. Take it or leave it." "QX, they're yours. Gimme it." "Why, this just starts our business, don't it? Ain't you got cores?" "Sure you have." "Yeah, but not for no—" "Double and unprintably qualified. Damn robber." "I like a louse, but you suit me altogether too damn well. Them suits alone, just as they lay, are worth 1,000. "So what? For why go to insult me, a businessman? Sure, I can't give you what that stuff is worth. Who could? You ought to know how I got to get rid of hot goods. You killed, ain't it, the guys what owned it? So how could I treat it except like it's hot? Now be your age. Don't burn out no jets." As the lensman turned with a blistering, sizzling, deep space oath, "I know they shot first. They always do. But how does that change things? But keep your shirt on yet. I don't tell nobody nothing. For why should I? How could I make any money on hot goods if I talk too much with my mouth, huh? But on cores, that's something else again. Meteors is legitimate merchandise, and I pay you as much as anybody, maybe more." "QX." And Kinnison tossed over his cores. He had sold the bandits' spacesuits and equipment deliberately in order to minimize further killing. This was his first visit to Miner's Rest, but he intended to become an habitué of the place, and before he would be accepted as a regular, he knew that he would have to prove his quality. Buccos and bullies would be sure to try him out. This way was much better. The tale would spread, and any gunman who had drilled 2 hijackers dead center through the faceplates was not one to be challenged lightly. He might have to kill 1 or 2, but not many, nor frequently. And the fellow was honest enough in his buying of the metal. His Spauldings cut honest cores. Kinnison put micrometers on them to be sure of that fact. He did not underread his tarsiometer, and he weighed the meteors upon certified balances. He used galactic standard average value density tables, and offered exactly half of the calculated average value, which Kinnison knew was fair enough. By taking his metal to a mint or rare metal station of the patrol, any miner could get the precise value of any meteor, as shown by detailed analysis. However, instead of making the long trip and waiting and paying for the exact analysis, the miners usually preferred to take the 50% of average density value, which was the customary offer of the outside dealers. Then, the meteors unloaded and hauled away, Kinnison dickered with Strongheart concerning the supplies he would need during his next trip. The 101 items which are necessary to make a tiny spaceship a self-contained, self-sufficient, warm and inhabitable worldlet in the immense and unfriendly vacuity of space. Here, too, the lensman was overcharged shamelessly, but that, too, was routine. No one would or could be expected to do business in any such place as Miner's Rest in any sane or ordinary percentage of profit. When Strongheart counted out to him the net proceeds of the voyage, Kinnison scratched reflectively at his whiskery chin. "That ain't hardly enough, I don't think, for the real old-fashioned stem-winding bender I was figuring on," he ruminated. "I've been out a long time, and I was figuring on doing the thing up brown. Have to let go of my nugget, too, I guess. Kinda hate to. Been packing it around quite a while. But here she is." He reached into his kit bag and tossed over the lump of really precious metal. "Let you have it for 1,500 credits." 1,500? An idiot you must be, or you should think I'm one I don't know." Strongheart yelped as he juggled the mass lightly from hand to hand. 200, you mean? Well, 250 then. But that's an awful high bid, mister, believe me. I tell you, I couldn't give my own mother over 300. I'd lose money on the goods. You ain't tested it. What makes you think it's such a match?" "No, and I notice you ain't tested it neither," Kinnison countered. "Me and you both know metal well enough, so we don't need to test no such nugget as that. 1,500, or I flit to a mint and get full value for it. I don't have to stay here, you know, by all the 9 hells of Valeria. There's millions of other places where I can get just as drunk and have just as good a time as I can here." Therein ensued howls of protest, but Strongheart finally yielded, as the lensman had known that he would. He could have forced him higher, but 1,500 was enough. "Now, sir, just the guarantee, and you're all set for a lot of fun." Strongheart's anguish had departed miraculously upon the instant of the deal's closing. "We take your keys, and when your money's gone and you come back to get 'em, to sell your supplies or your ship or whatever, we takes you without hurting you a bit more than we have to, and sober you up quick as scat. A room here whenever you want it included. Padded, sir, very nice and comfortable. You can't hurt yourself, possibly. We've been in business here for years, with perfect satisfaction. Not one of our customers, and we got hundreds who never go nowhere else, have we ever let sell any of the stuff he had layin' in for his next trip, and we never steal none of his supplies, neither. Only 200 credits for the whole service, sir. Cheap, sir, very, very cheap at the price." Kinnison again scratched meditatively, this time at the nape of his neck. "I'll take your guarantee, I guess, because sometimes when I get to going real good, I don't know just exactly when to stop. But I don't need no padded cell. Me, I don't never get violent. I always taper off on 24 units of Bedlam. That gives me 24 hours on the shelf, and then I'm all set for another stretch out in the ether. You couldn't get me no Benny, I don't suppose, and if you could, it wouldn't be no damn good." This was the critical instant, the moment the lensman had been approaching so long and so circuitously. Mind was already reading mind. Kinnison did not need the speech which followed. 24 units! Strongheart exclaimed. That was a heroic dose, but the man before him was of heroic mold. "Sure of that?" "Sure, I'm sure. And if I get cut weight or cut quality, I cut the guy's throat that peddles it to me. But I ain't out. I got a few good jolts left. Guess I'll use my own, and when he gets gone, go buy some from a fella I know that's about half honest. Don't handle it myself." This, the lensman knew, was at least partially true. "But I know a man who has a friend who can get it. Good stuff, too, in the original tins. Special import from Corvina, too. That'll be 400 altogether. Give me it, and you can start your helling around." "What do you mean, 400? Kinnison snorted. "Think I'm just blasting off about having some left, huh? Here's 200 for your guarantee. That's all I want out of you." "Wait a minute, jet back, Miner." Strongheart had thought that the newcomer was entirely out of his drug, and could therefore be charged 8 prices for it. "How much do you get it for, mostly? The clerk will." 1 credit per unit, 24 for the jolt," Kinnison replied tersely and truly. That was the prevailing price charged by retail peddlers. "I'll pay you that, and I don't mean 25 neither." As the lensman spoke, he shrugged his shoulders, and the dive-keeper leaped backward with a shriek, for faster than sight 2 ugly delamitors had sprung into being in the miner's huge dirty paws and were pointed squarely at his midriff. "Put 'em away!" Strongheart yelled. "Look 'em over first." And Kinnison handed them over butts first. "These ain't like them buzzards cap pistols what I sold you. These are my own, and they're hot and tight. You know guns, don't you? Look 'em over, pal, real close." The renegade did know weapons, and he studied these 2 with care, from the worn, rough checkered grips and the full-charged magazines to the burned, scarred, deeply pitted orifices. Definitely and unmistakably, these were weapons of terrific power, weapons, withal, which had seen hard and frequent service, and Strongheart personally could bear witness to the blinding speed of this miner's draw. "And remember this," the lensman went on. "I never yet got so drunk that anybody could take my guns away from me, and if I don't get a full jolt of Benny, I get mighty peevish." The publican knew that. It was a characteristic of the drug, and he certainly did not want that miner running amok with those 2 weapons in his highly capable hands. He would, he assured him, get his full dose. And for his part, Kinnison knew that he was reasonably safe, even in this hell of hells. As long as he was active, he could take care of himself in any kind of company, and he was fairly certain that he would not be slain during his drug-induced physical helplessness for the value of his ship and supplies. This one visit had yielded Strongheart a profit of 4 or 5 times what he had left, and every subsequent visit should yield a similar amount. "The first drink's on the house, always," Strongheart derailed his guest's train of thought. "What'll it be? Tellurian, ain't you? Whiskey?" Close, though. Aldebaran, too. Got any good old Aldebaran Boliga?" "No, but we got some good Tellurian whiskey, about the same thing." "QX, give me a shot." He poured a stiff 3 fingers, downed it at a gulp, shuddered ecstatically, and emitted a wild yell. "Yip, yip, hee hee! I'm Wild Bill Williams, the rippin', roarin', rootin' delirium from Aldebaran 2, and this is my night to howl. Wee, oh, wee!" Then, quietening down, "This rot gut wasn't never within 1,000,000 parsecs of Tellus, but it ain't bad, not bad at all. Got the teeth and claws of holy old Clono himself. Goes down your throat just like swallowing a mad Rattlegian cat-eagle. Clear ether, pal. I'll be back shortly." For his first care was to tour the entire rest, buying scrupulously 1 good stiff drink of whatever first came to hand at each hot spot as he came to it. "A goodwill tour," he explained joyously to Strongheart upon his return. "Got to do it, pal, to keep 'em from calling down the curse of Clono on me. But I'm going to do all my serious drinking right here." And he did. He drank various and sundry beverages, mixing them with a sublime disregard for consequences which surprised even the hard-boiled booze fighters assembled there. "Anything that'll pour," he declared, loud and often, and acted accordingly. Potent or mild, brewed, fermented or distilled, loaded, cut or straight, all one. "Down the hatch!" And down it went. Here was a 2-fisted drinker whose like had not been seen for many a day, and his fame spread throughout the rest. Being a happy jag, the more he drank the merrier he became. He bestowed largesse hither and yon in joyous abandon. He danced blithely with the hostesses and tipped them extravagantly. He did not gamble, explaining frequently and painstakingly that wasn't none of his dish. He wanted to have fun with his money. He fought even without anger or rancor, but gaily, laughing with Homeric gusto the while. He missed with terrific swings that would have felled a horse had they landed, only occasionally getting in, as though by chance, a paralyzing punch. Thus he accumulated an entirely unnecessary mouse under each eye and a sadly bruised nose. However, his good humor was, as is generally the case in such instances, quite close to the surface, and was prone to turn into passionate anger with less real cause even than the trivialities which started the friendly fistfights. During various of these outbursts of wrath, he smashed 4 chairs, 2 tables, and assorted glassware. But only once did he have to draw a deadly weapon. The news, as he had known it would, had spread abroad that with a delameter he was nobody to monkey with, and even then he didn't have to kill the guy. Just winging him, a little bit of a burn through his gun arm had been enough. So it went for days, and finally it was an immense relief that the hilariously drunken lensman, his money gone to the last Milo, went roistering up the street with a 2-quart bottle in each hand, swigging now from one and then from the other, inviting bilbulously the while any and all chance comers to join him in one last fond drink. The sidewalk was not wide enough for him by half indeed. He took up most of the street. He staggered and reeled, retaining any semblance of balance only by a miracle and by his rigorous spaceman's training. He threw away one empty bottle, then the other. Then, as he strode along, so purposefully and yet so futilely, he sang. His voice was not particularly musical, but what it lacked in quality of tone it more than made up in volume. Kinnison had a really remarkable voice, a bass of tremendous power, timbre, and resonance, and pulling out all the stops, in tones audible for 2,000 yards against the wind, he poured out his zestfully lusty reveler's soul. His song was a deep space chanty that would have blistered the ears of any of the gentler spirits who had known him as Kimball Kinnison of Earth, but which, in Miner's Rest, was merely a humorous and sprightly ballad. Up the full length of the street he went, then back, as he put it, to base. Even if this final bust did make him sicker at the stomach than a ground gripper going free for the first time, the lensman reflected he had done a mighty good job. He had put Wild Bill Williams, meteor miner of Aldebaran II, on the map in a big way. It wasn't a faked and therefore fragile identity either. It was solidly, definitely his own. Staggering up to his friend Strongheart, he steadied himself with 2 big hands upon the latter's shoulders and breathed a 40,000 horsepower breath into his face. "I'm boiled like a Tellurian hoot owl," he announced, still happily. "When I'm this stewed, I can't say particularly without kicking, but I would particularly just like 1 more quart. How about me borrowing 100 on what I'm going to bring in next time, or selling you—" "You've had plenty, Bill. You've had lots of fun. How about a good chew of Sleep Happy, huh?" "That's a thought!" the miner exclaimed eagerly. "Lead me to it." A stranger came up unobtrusively and took him by one elbow. Strongheart took the other, and between them they walked him down a narrow hall and into a cubicle. And while he walked flabbily along, Kinnison studied intently the brain of the newcomer. This was what he was after. The ape had a screen, but it was such a nuisance he took it off for a rest whenever he came here. No lensman on Euphrosyne. They had combed everybody, even this drunken bum here. This was one place that no lensman would ever come to, or if he did, he wouldn't last long. Kinnison had been pretty sure that Strongheart would be in cahoots with somebody bigger than a peddler, and so it had proved. This guy knew plenty, and the lensman was taking the information, all of it. 6 weeks from now, eh? Just right. Time enough to find metal for another royal binge here, and during that binge he would really do things. 6 weeks. Quite a while, but QX. It would take some time anyway, probably, before the regional directors would, like this fellow, get over their scares enough to relax a few of their most irksome precautions. And, as has been intimated, Kinnison, while impatient enough at times, could hold himself in check like a cat watching a mouse hole whenever it was really necessary. Therefore, in the cell, he seated himself upon the bunk and seized the packet from the hand of the stranger. Tearing it open, he stuffed the contents into his mouth, and, eyes rolling and muscles twitching, he chewed vigorously, expertly allowing the potent juice to trickle down his gullet just fast enough to keep his head humming like a swarm of angry bees. Then, the cud sucked dry, he slumped down upon the mattress, physically dead to the world for the ensuing 24 GP hours. He awakened, weak, flimsy, and supremely wretched. He made heavy going to the office, where Strongheart returned to him the keys of his boat. "Feeling low, sir." It was a statement, not a question. "I'll say so." The lensman groaned. He was holding his spinning head, trying to steady the gyrating universe. "I'd have to look up, way up with the number 9 visiplate to see a snake's belly in a swamp. Make that damn cat quit stomping his feet, can't you? Too bad, but it won't last long." The voice was unctuous enough, but totally devoid of feeling. "Here's a pickup. You need it." The lensman tossed off the potion without thanks, as was good technique in those parts. His head cleared miraculously, although the stabbing ache remained. "Come in again next time. Everything's been on the green, ain't it, sir?" "Uh-huh, very nice," the lensman admitted. "Couldn't ask for better. I'll be back in 5 or 6 weeks, if I have any luck at all." As the battered but staunch and powerful meteor boat floated slowly upward, a desultory conversation was taking place in the dive he had left. At that early hour business was slack to the point of non-existence, and Strongheart was chatting idly with a bartender and one of the hostesses. "If more of the boys was like him, we wouldn't have no trouble at all," Strongheart stated with conviction. "Nice, quiet, easy going. Why, he didn't hardly damage a thing for all his fun." "Yes, but at that, maybe it's a good gag nobody riled him up too much," the barkeep opined. "He could be rough if he wanted to. I bet a quart. Drunk or sober, he's chain lightning with them delameters." "He's so refined, such a perfect gentleman," sighed the woman. "He's nice." To her, he had been. She had had plenty of credits from the big miner without having given anything save smiles and dances in return. Them 2 guys he drilled must have needed killing, or he wouldn't have burned 'em. And that was that, as the lensman had intended, while Bill Williams was an old, known, and highly respected resident of Miner's Rest. Out among the asteroids again, more muscle-tearing, back-breaking, lonesome labor. Kinnison did not find any more fabulously rich meteors. Such things happen only once in 100 lifetimes. But he was getting his share of heavy stuff. Then one day, when he had about half a load, there came, screaming in upon the emergency wave, a call for help. A call so loud that the ship broadcasting it must be very close indeed. Yes, there she was, right in his lap, startlingly large even upon the low-powered plates of his space tramp. "Help! Spaceship Hyperion, position," a rattling string of numbers. "Bergenholm dead. Meteorite screens practically disabled. Intrinsic velocity throwing us into the asteroids. Any space tugs, any vessels with tractors, hurry." At the first word, Kinnison had shoved his blast lever full over. A few seconds of free flight, a minute of inert maneuvering that taxed to the utmost his lensman's skill and powerful frame, and he was within the liner's airlock. "I know something about bergs," he snapped. "Take this boat of mine and pull. Are you evacuating passengers?" He shot at the mate as they ran toward the engine room. "Yes, but afraid we haven't boats enough. Overloaded," was the gasped reply. "Use mine. Fill her up." If the mate was surprised at such an offer from the despised space rat, he did not show it. There were many more surprises in store. In the engine room, Kinnison brushed aside a crew of helplessly futile gropers and threw in switch after switch. He looked. He listened. Above all, he pried into that sealed monster of power with all his sense of perception. How glad he was now that he and Thorndyke had struggled so long and so furiously with a bulky Bergenholm on that trip to tempestuous Trinco. For, as a result of that trip, he did know bergs with a sure knowledge. "Number 4 lead is shot somewhere," he reported. "Must be burned off where it clears the pilaster. Careless overhaul last time. Got to take off the lower port third cover. No time for wrenches. Get me a cutting beam. And get the lead out of your pants." The beam was brought on the double, and the lensman himself blasted away the designated cover. Then, throwing an insulated plate over the red-hot casing, he lay on his back. "Hand me a light," and peered briefly upward into the bowels of the gargantuan mechanism. "I thought so," he grunted. "Piece of 4O stranded, 18 inches long. Ditmars number 6 clip leads, space to 20 inches between hole centers. Meyerbeer insulation on center section doubled. Snap it up. One of you other fellows, bring me a short, heavy screwdriver and a Ditmar 6 wrench." The technicians worked fast, and in a matter of seconds the stuff was there. The lensman labored briefly but hugely, and much more surely than if he were dependent upon the rays of the hand lamp to penetrate the smoky, steamy, greasy murk in which he toiled. Then, "QX, give her the juice," he snapped. They gave it, and to the stunned surprise of all, she took it. The liner again was free. "Kind of a jury-rigging I gave it, but it'll hold long enough to get you into port, sir," he reported to the captain in his sanctum, saluting crisply. He was in for it now, he knew, as the officer stared at him. But he couldn't have let that shipload of passengers get ground up into hamburger. Anyway, there was no way out. In apparent reaction, he turned pale and trembled, and the officer hastily took from his medicinal stores a bottle of choice brandy. "Here, drink this," he directed, proffering the glass. Kinnison did so. More, he seized the bottle from the captain's hand and drank that too, all of it. A draught which would have literally turned him inside out a few months since. Then, to the captain's horrified disgust, he took from his filthy dungarees a packet of Bentlem and began to chew it, idiotically blissful. Thence, and shortly into oblivion. "Poor devil, you poor, poor devil," the commander murmured, and had him put into a bunk. When he had come to and had had his pickup, the captain came and regarded him soberly. "You were a man once. An engineer and a crackerjack, or I'm an oiler's pimp," he said levelly. "Maybe," Kinnison replied, white and weak. "I'm all right yet, except once in a while—" "I know," the captain frowned. "No cure?" "Not a chance. Tried dozens. So—" And the lensman spread out his hands in a hopeless gesture. "Better tell me your name anyway, your real name. That'll let your planet know that you aren't—" "Better not." The sufferer shook his aching head. "Folks think I'm dead. Better let them keep on thinking so. Williams is the name, sir. William Williams of Aldebaran 2. As you say. How far are we from where I boarded you?" "Close. Less than 500 million miles. This, the second, is our home planet. Your asteroid belt is just outside the orbit of the fourth." "I can hop it in an hour, easy. Guess I'll buzz off." "As you say," the officer agreed again. "But we'd like to—" and he extended a sheaf of currency. "Rather not, sir. Thanks. You see, the longer it takes me to earn another stake, the longer it'll be before—" "I see. Thanks anyway for us all." And captain and mate helped the derelict embark. They scarcely looked at him, scarcely dared look at each other, but Kinnison, for his part, was almost content. This story, too, would get around. It would be in Miner's Rest before he got back there, and it would help a lot. He did not see how he could possibly or ever let those officers know the truth, even though he realized full well that at that very moment they were thinking, pityingly, "The poor devil, the poor brave devil." End of chapter 12.